You know, we spend so much of our lives trying to avoid pain, trying to sidestep suffering. But what if that's the completely wrong approach? What if the secret to happiness isn't getting rid of suffering, but actually learning how to use it? It's a pretty radical idea, and it's right at the heart of Thich Nhat Hanh's incredible book, No Mud, No Lotus. So let's dive into this and see how we can learn to transform our own difficulties.
Wow, that quote right there is the key to this whole thing. It just completely reframes how we look at hardship. Instead of seeing pain as some kind of enemy we have to fight, this is telling us to see it as the soil, the necessary, nutrient-rich mud that our joy actually needs to grow.
So this brings us to what's called the happiness paradox. Look, we all suffer. It's just part of being human. And what's our first instinct when we feel pain? We run, right? We try to ignore it, numb it, push it away. But here's the paradox. What if the very act of running away is what's actually keeping us from being happy? And this is where the perspective really starts to shift. The goal isn't to create a life with zero suffering. Come on, that's impossible. The real goal is to get good at it, to learn the skill of suffering well. And the wild thing is, when you learn how to handle suffering with compassion and understanding, you paradoxically end up suffering a whole lot less. I absolutely love this comparison because it makes so much sense. Expecting a life of just pure, uninterrupted happiness is like wanting a left side but no right side, or wanting light without any darkness. It just doesn't work that way. They aren't two separate things fighting each other, they're inseparable. They define each other. As Thich Nhat Hanh would say, they inter-are.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into this whole no mud, no lotus idea. Now, this might sound a little weird at first, but stick with me. To really get this, we have to understand that happiness itself is actually made of things that are not happiness. I know, it sounds like a riddle, but it's just like that beautiful lotus flower needing the messy mud to grow.
Just take a second and really think about a flower. When you look at it, what are you really seeing? Thich Nhat Hanh asks us to look deeply, because if we do, we'll see that a flower is made up entirely of things that are, well, not a flower. The idea that it's just this separate, independent thing, that's kind of an illusion.
Yeah, when you look at that flower, you can see the cloud that turned into rain to water it. You can feel the sunshine that gave it energy. You can see the minerals from the earth, and even the compost, all the stuff that had to break down and decay to give it life. None of those things is a flower, right? And yet without them, that flower simply couldn't exist.
And that brings us right back to our own lives. Our suffering, our anger, our fear, our sadness, that's our mud. The point isn't that you have to pretend to love it. The point is to stop treating it like it's just bad, to stop discriminating against it. We can actually learn to use it as compost for our own lotus of happiness to grow.
Okay, so this all sounds great, but how do we actually do it? Well, the very first step, and honestly, this might be the hardest one, is to simply stop running. We have to be brave enough to turn around and gently say hello to our suffering.
But man, stopping is hard. Our world is basically a giant distraction machine. The second we feel even a little bit of pain, what's the first thing we do? We grab our phones, we turn on Netflix, we go stand in front of the fridge, we consume things to numb ourselves, but that just puts a Band-Aid on the problem. It never, ever heals it.
So the tool we need to do this is mindfulness. And don't let that word intimidate you. It's not some complicated, mystical thing. Mindfulness is simply the energy of being aware. It's just the ability to know what's happening right here and right now without immediately slapping a label on it.
So here's the practice. When a painful feeling comes up, the instinct is to fight it or analyze it to death. The practice is to do neither. You just stop. You bring all your attention to your breath, in and out. And then you just gently acknowledge the feeling, like you're greeting someone at your door. Ah, hello anxiety. I see you're here. So, once you've acknowledged the pain, the next step is to embrace it. Now, this doesn't mean you let it swallow you whole or you start wallowing in it. It means holding it with a real sense of care and tenderness. The way he explains this is so perfect. Imagine a mother who hears her baby crying. She doesn't get angry or judge the baby for crying, right? Of course not. Her natural instinct is to pick up the child and hold it gently, and just that act of holding it with pure care starts to bring relief. Well, mindfulness is the mother, and our suffering, that's the crying child inside of us that just needs to be held with some compassion.
So here it is, the whole process in 4 steps. First, you stop running away. Second, you acknowledge the feeling is there. You just say hello.
Third, you embrace it. You hold it gently. And then fourth, and this is important, only after it has calmed down a bit can you look deeply to understand where it's coming from.
This also relates to this really powerful teaching of the two arrows. So the first arrow is just life. A painful event happens. It's unavoidable sometimes. But the second arrow, that's our reaction to the first one. It's the story we tell ourselves, the blame, the resentment, the fear that this is going to last forever. And here's the absolute game changer. That second arrow is optional. It's the one we fire at ourselves, and it's almost always the one that causes the deepest suffering.
So by learning how to not fire that second arrow, we can finally start to actually nurture our own happiness. And a huge part of that comes from understanding what we truly need and what we can maybe learn to let go of.
There's this great little story he tells about a farmer who is completely distraught because he lost all his cows. After the farmer leaves, the Buddha turns to his monks and says this: "The point is, so often the things we're attached to, the things we're convinced we need to be happy, our cows, they're actually the source of our biggest anxieties."
This is something a former governor named Badia said after he gave up all his power and wealth to become a monk. As a ruler, he lived in constant fear of losing everything. But when he finally had nothing left to protect, just sitting under a tree, he felt truly safe and free for the very first time. He had nothing, and yet he finally had everything.
So that really brings the question back to us, doesn't it? What are our cows? Is it a certain job, a particular relationship, or maybe just a rigid idea of how our life is supposed to be? What attachments could we release right now to find a little more freedom and joy?
So let's end with this simple, powerful practice offered in the book. It's a little verse to start your day. And it's a beautiful reminder that every day is a gift. The art of transforming suffering isn't about reaching some far-off, perfect future. It's about how we choose to live this one precious day, right here in the mud, knowing that there's always the potential for a lotus to bloom.